So, but how have you been though? I mean, it's a mad one, isn't it? Lockdown and
I've been all right actually. Lockdown wasn't too. Lockdown came at a good time for me. It was just before the second anniversary of my daughter's death, and it was just I got to stop still for a bit. Do you know what I mean? I didn't feel that kind of guilt that I'm stopping still and everybody else is doing stuff and I feel I need to be doing stuff. It's like the world paused. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
And I needed it. I'm sick of it now.
But there was a sense that we don't get time to process anything when we're rushing around, traveling, doing
trying
to keep people happy, trying to then just recover for a day in between gigs.
Freelance life is not easy.
Yeah. Public transport life and eating fast food on the go and just sort of things, you know, I've had a chance to pause. There's a lot of self-care happening at the moment. I think that's really important.
Almost. I've been eating like a pig, but I've loved it.
I've been eating like a pig, but I've been cooking. I've been like doing things like making my favorite vices, my version of like Five Guys without meat, you know. That's been a lot of fun. And I've just about managed to jog to keep healthy, but here we are.
I've done no exercise.
Say again?
I've done no exercise, which is not excusable at all. I have an exercise bike here. I have weights here. I like to go out and run, but you can't do that with a kid, really. She's not in a pushchair anymore. Right. So that's my excuse.
No, that's a valid one, definitely. I've done this thing of just being really super keen on stuff. So I've ordered the weights off of Amazon. I've ordered like a bench, a proper like working out bench, but I've not used either of them yet. So
I know it's bad.
It's psychological, you know, first hurdle.
It really is to work out in your house because I've had these things, but I always go to a gym.
Yeah.
So having them in the house, I don't know. But Mimi likes to swing off the bike and tie things to it. So it's being used.
Yeah, for real. Thanks so much for joining me. I've been streaming, chatting to people, interviewing where I can, and just having a chance to catch up with you is really important to me, really special.
Oh, thank you.
There's, you know, so much that I feel we're kindred spirits on. Our paths have converged where we've been on train trips up and down the place.
Yeah.
Been pulled on often onto Channel 4 News to give opinions on racism and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
both have Belgian blood. I didn't even realise that till late last year.
Say that again. Oh, Belgian blood. Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
That's right. We could be related, literally. That's what's up.
Probably. You know what I mean?
You get me.
When you go there, your family warn you.
There's a whole lot of family I didn't even know. You know,
there's
branches of Kinches there on the island. It's been an amazing revelation, actually. But seeing the environment that your parents grew up in, often like pennies drop. You're like, oh, okay. I see how this idiosyncrasy, not just all the good stuff, but the mixture of it all makes a lot of sense, even when you go back to that environment 40, 50 years.
Yeah. My parents are a bit different.
Say again?
I said my parents, we do not have a relationship, so I really started working on my connection to the Caribbean because I thought my connection cannot be theirs. It cannot be them because I won't have one. I have to show.
What really chimes with me there is that when I was there, a real penny dropped talking to basically guys of my generation, musicians, a bit younger than me.
Yeah.
Every black man in that room, including myself, was a very tortured relationship with their fathers at that particular moment. Estrangement, not talking, just beef. The number of people I've spoken to in the West Indies as well, in Britain rather, who say that going back to Grenada for them, going to Trinidad, going to Barbados, Jamaica is difficult because just estrangement and family issues. So that trauma, I think, is quite widespread.
Yeah. Have you got both parents from Barbados?
No, my mum's side's Jamaican. And again, there's cousins, uncles, aunts that I've never met. I don't even know. There's a large portion of that family that I don't know about. And it's too easy to sort of write it off as black father absenteeism. I think that there's just a lot of trauma that we've not processed. A whole lot.
I think Bajan culture is different because Bajan culture is matrifocal. So I've got a Bajan mum. So the women tend to be stronger. It's the only island I know of, I could be wrong, where if you're not married to the dad, you take the mum's name. You don't take the dad's name. Which in Dominica you don't do. And Mimi's dad's Dominican, so it was they're ready to call UN for me. I said, we don't do that, I'm afraid. We just don't. She's going to be a Vidal, which is a Dominican name anyway. It's not going to be his Dominican name, so that's just how it is.
Right.
But I think, yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm quite vocal, get very involved when I go down the Caribbean. And
yeah, I think that's another epiphany I'm having listening to you as well, is just, you know, Vidal, a Dominican name, discovering that so many of my cousins would have moved back at the turn of the century, either to America or other West Indian islands. It reminds me of the Noel Clarke, Who Do You Think You Are episode, where he thinks he's Trini, and he discovers he's from Carriacou.
Oh, I've got to go and look for that. I didn't know.
Definitely have to check that episode out. It's revelatory for two reasons, two massive reasons. The first, that the similarities that connect these islands vastly outweigh the differences. We've been imagining that, like, there's a difference between a Jamaican and a small island, as if Jamaica is Texas. Do you know what I mean? It's huge, and it's part of the ongoing divide and conquer, just to sort of remind us that we're all supposed to be different, when actually we're all very, very similar in so many ways. But the second thing about that episode was fascinating, was that through songs, long story short, but through a particular song, he was able to trace a direct lineage to Akan, to a community people in Ghana. So our music, our comedy, and that's a good place to maybe kick off with you as well, is really crucial to our culture in a way I've never really appreciated until recently. The dozens, blazing, whatever you call it in our culture, is actually got an antecedent in West Africa. The thing that we do just to bring each other down to a basic level, put that into the context of what it was like in slave societies. Humor was important in processing trauma. Huge. You know, and how did you come to be a comedian, and what do you think is the place of your comedy with everything that's going on, I suppose?
Interesting, because I have been sidelined in comedy quite a lot. And a lot of that is due to the way I speak about race and being non-apologetic and just being myself. It's actually a white comedian who taught me that. That was Stuart Lee. When I first started, he saw me and said, "Oh, you're really, like, strong. You know who you are and stuff, and stay that way." And he talks about being out of fashion for 20 years. And said, "Oh, well, you know, in 2005, he just came back huge all of a sudden." He said, like, the trends will change. When I first came out, it was like, "Oh, she's interesting." And it was like, "Oh, she's quite honest." And then it became, they like whimsical comedy. So it became like Sarah Pascoe, Josie Long, who was out before me, but she came back sort of big in a real way. Izzy Sooty, sort of really whimsy, you know, whimsy, crazy train of thought. I don't do that. I'll just stand there and go, "Fuck you." You know what I mean? So I just don't do that. So I think with Black Lives Matter, I thought only me, because I've been busy in the last month or so, since all this has kicked off, doing interviews.
I've noticed.
Writing pieces, I mean, how twisted is it that blackface revived my career?
It's
only me.
It's amazing. I listened to that interview with Harry Enfield with a mixture of fascination and revulsion. Like, you know, maybe it was the same for you, but Harry Enfield, to some extent, must have been a bit of a hero. You know, just being on telly, it's a big deal. Like, you just kind of think these people are basically cool, right? Yeah. And then you are shocked to discover this dude's just using the coon word casually, shockingly lacking in self-awareness. And these are the people that we've called centrists, if you like, for the past 20 or 30 years. People that,
almost left-wing, really, those lot. Definitely. You think of Kathy Burke when you think of, and she's very left-wing. And I'll tell you how that came about. They just called me and asked me to do it and said, "There's going to be another comedian who's worn blackface." See, I didn't even know he'd done that. He's worn blackface and he's going to defend his use of it. So I said, "Can you tell me who it is?" And they said no. They wouldn't tell me till I agreed to do it.
Wow.
I said, okay, because I'm thinking to myself, well, it's going to be someone like Stan Boardman. It's going to be one of those old schoolers.
Boy, Chubby Brown, man. I don't expect.
I wasn't sure if he was dead. I'm not even being horrible. I don't know if he's dead or not.
Yeah.
The other one's dead, isn't he? Bernard Manning.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure. I thought it was going to be someone from that era, because I thought, I haven't been in comedy. Didn't really want, if they'd have told me Harry Enfield, I would have said no, because I would have probably, I don't want to come back on a row. And so, especially with somebody like that. And then this had kind of happened, and John Boyega, young as he is, influenced me, even though it wasn't that he influenced me, he told people the truth. He said, this ends our careers, like we won't work. So when he said that publicly, and then people started coming out, oh, we wouldn't stop your work. Because they had to say that, obviously. And he is very talented, not taking anything from him. When people started to realize we lose work over this kind of thing, I just thought, actually, you've got to say something. You've always said you're going to say something. So I thought, Harry Enfield or not, I'm going to take you on. I don't care whatever happens. And I'm not going to let. So I didn't expect to have such a short amount of time. And that's why when he said, okay, you make your point. I said, no, I'm going to make my point. And he was like, well, hurry up then. And I was like, whatever. But I just made sure I got a couple of hard statements out. And the Metro were on it in 10 minutes. I was like, they
definitely
moved
got
fast.
a couple of hard statements out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Today's program, it was...
It is, because I did feel disappointed. And I said that afterwards. And I did go on Twitter and go, wow, who knew that Tim Nice but Dim wasn't a character? Because that's how he sounded. He sounded like an idiot.
Loads of Money was like an archetypal, emblematic, almost social critique of yuppies in the 80s. You know, you kind of expect the creator of that to have a degree of social awareness and savvy and just self-reflective. Nah, not necessarily.
I never knew he was like that. And I just thought, actually, I don't care how long you've been in comedy. I'm not going to respect that. I don't have to show you respect for that at all. So I'm just going to say my piece, and however the chips fall, they fall.
I think what's fascinating about that exchange is that he considers himself, to my ears, a progressive. He's certainly not the most egregious racist. He's not Bernard Manning, right? And he was justifying it on the basis of, well, it was, what if Nelson Mandela was a drug dealer? You see what I'm doing there? I mean, the fact that there's a real blind spot in, I guess, the mainstream, not the right-wing fringe, but the mainstream of British culture. I think that's a real challenge.
It is, because then on the back of that came the Little Britain row that I had. Well, not row because they blocked me, but I blocked them first. I blocked them first.
Of course you did.
I had him blocked anyway. Right. But then there came that and people getting upset, and I just thought, you started now, so just keep going and just say whatever you want to say. And the reaction mainly, I mean, I've got some crap, you've seen it, but mainly it's been positive. It's been very positive, and people from the industry who work, you know, producers and stuff, have reached out to me and had, like, you know, long calls asking me what I think, how I think they can move forward, what do I think they can do. And even like what you said, the blind spot. I had this conversation, this guy was going, yeah, but there's not black talent. There's just not, there's no, I said, look, maybe sometimes when black talent's presented to you, because you work with all these white guys, you're used to a way of working. Like when I first started comedy, black people did not like me. And I never took it personally. I'm not one of those people who goes, oh my God, you know, white people call me the M-word and black people call me coconut and it's equal. It's not.
I need to stop you there, because that's another point of connection that we have. Like, as a battle rapper, as just a black person, people are really confused by the fact that I live in Handsworth. I'm overtly black on one side, but I went to private school, and that somehow
you as well.
Yeah. So I share this, like, you're not black enough for the black people, you're not white enough for the whites. And it's so delusional when you're like, so what, can I just be me rather than some version of either a bounty or the blackest negroidist gangster that you want me to be? How about I just be me?
Exactly. Did you bored as well?
Nah. I think that kept my feet on the ground. Thankfully, I wasn't left alone with those people. I would have been quite worried. My grandma tried to send me to Caterham when I was a kid. And my dad was having none of it. He's like, he might go to private school, but I'm not sending him to board with them.
Yeah. I did. I went from young. So it was quite like, I don't know. Like you said, it's never bothered me in that way. Yeah, I've been called a coconut, so what? Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you're not really black. I'm like, well, my parents are, so I am. And that's it. That's what, you know, what makes you black? My parents. End of story. And so I don't know, I've always, I had to find my way in comedy in that way, because it was kind of annoying. But I got it. Like I was trying to explain to this guy, the reason black people did not receive me is because if you put me on a black night of comedy, especially when I first started and I didn't really find my comedy feet and find my comedy voice yet, I mess up the night. I mess up the rhythm of the night. Do you know what I mean? So if you've got like Ninia Benjamin, then you've got Curtis Walker, Then you've got maybe Annette Fagan, and they've got a certain delivery, they've got a certain energy that I don't have, and I just don't, and it's not me. I'm not bouncing up and down, I'm not being lively, and that's their thing. I'm just really laid back. Curtis is more laid back as well, but Curtis, there's a lot of Caribbean accents. He's, you know, more entrenched. He's got that history with the real McCoy. So he's different again. So I think me and Felix Dexter used to speak about that a lot. Felix, he grew up in Sussex where I went to prep school. So we used to have that chat a lot. And so I just learned to use it and to say, well, this is what my background is, but this is how I feel about A, B, and C. And I just got on with it. And I remember doing Soho Theatre for about the 4th year. And the tech guy was like, wow, because the audience came in, they were half black and half white. He went, wow, you're crossing over. And I went, yes, black people are finally coming to see me. I was like, huh? Wait, yeah, black people never came to see me.
Yeah, I've arrived. You said something earlier that really set off a trigger in me as well, that we can lose work for speaking out about these sorts of things, that we're in a precarious position. And I think going to private school, actually going to uni, and to contemporary of Munira Mirza, contemporary of Sam Giamma, and I can't help reflect, based on the careers I've seen them have and having watched them over the past couple of decades, that there's a sort of unspoken contract. If you go to Dulwich, if you go to Bromsgrove, where I went, you went to Harrow, you get into these hallowed institutions, then you better just act like everything's okay. The unspoken deal is like, you're there as an apologist for a racist system. You're supposed to act like racism doesn't exist. You know? You're supposed to
act grateful that you're allowed to sit at the table. And I just don't subscribe to that, because I just remember feeling, I don't know, I've always had, maybe because I went so young. I went at 6 and my parents weren't even in the country. We were living in Syria. So I was in this country on my own, really. And so I just remember being sat down going, like, at my first sort of assembly thing, oh, you are the future leaders of this country. And I was like, hang on a second. No one else here looks like me. Like, oh, they used to get so sick of me, honestly. I think, like...
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd be like, excuse me? Where's the rest of the black people, kind of thing? And, so it was a lot of that, where it just be like, Vidal, shut up, Vidal, get out, Vidal. And I was just like, you know what I mean? And I just ask a lot of questions. And then when I got to teenage years, I got really rebellious in it. But I read a lot about black people, black culture. I think when I was younger, mainly it was African-American stuff. As I got older, I tried to start looking for Caribbean stories and black British stories and stuff. But I kept in touch that way, just on my own, because my parents didn't want me like that. That's not what they sent me there for. They want, like, I used to have this really horrible RP accent. When I moved down to London at 16, I was like, this voice is going to get me killed. So I'm going to need to try and change it a bit. But I do remember.
Hello, my name's Ava. How are you?
Hello. Like, what did you just say? And I was like, hello. And so, like, I was so used to, like, being around Kettering and stuff, where when we came back in England, that's where we were. And we were friends with the other black family. We didn't even like them. Do you know what I mean? We said hi to all the other black people, like the other 4 or 5. Yeah, exactly. So we would talk to people. So when I came to London, I was like, hello, hello, hello. And they're like, get lost. And then it was kind of like, I didn't get the light skin, dark skin thing. I got it from family, obviously Caribbean family and stuff like that, but I wasn't immersed in it. I wasn't going to school being teased for being dark-skinned girl, or, you know, I was just teased for being black, and that was the end of it, you know. And I remember we had a family 2 doors away from us, and we used to just walk up and down. We used to talk to the daughters. I'm still in touch with them now, actually. And we used to walk down the street, and people used to go, nigger, nigger. And they used to go, just keep walking, keep walking. And I was like, and then later on, my sister went, yeah, because, you know, they were mixed race. I went, what? She goes, you didn't know their dad was black? I went, wow. They don't look to me that they were black in any way, shape or form at all. And I was like, wow, they can sniff it out. She went, she goes, when they were shouting niggers, they meant all of us. And I went, wow, I did not even know. I had no idea. Because the mum is that with dad.
The people shouting N-words at you were passing themselves? Were they black, or the people that you were with were mixed race?
No, the white people. So
Right.
us and the girls 2 doors away would would go to the shop or something and be racially abused. But I thought the racial abuse was for just us, but it was for all of us. And I didn't know till I was older that they were mixed race people at all. So it's just like, wow, they can sniff it out, man.
I guess the question that Harry Enfield couldn't answer, that these people in Kettering couldn't answer, and it's one that James Baldwin posed really eloquently. I'm not a nigger. You know what I mean? I've not been this minstrel that you created. Yeah. Nobody in my family looks like that. So you white people have to sort of explain why you felt the need to create blackface. Why you felt the need to dehumanize us in this way. What's that about? And I find that examination never happens, right? The lens is always on us. How do you feel about being offended and dehumanized? What are you going to do to change racism? Not what psychosis is going on that requires you to create a creature with massive lips that looks nothing like me.
It was to justify what they were doing. It was like the whole it comes from 3/5 human. If you're subjugating somebody and you're beating them and you're raping them and you're attacking them, to sit right with yourself, you have to say they are less than. You know what I mean? And you cannot have them seen as equal to you, as equal human beings. And people talk about genetic memory and how black people have it. White people have it. And people go, oh, what do you mean white people have genetic memory? I was like, okay, have you ever gone to the cash point and had a tramp sitting next to it call you a fucking nigger? Well, that's genetic, because I don't know who the hell you think you're talking to, so I stamp on you. But but it's just like that inherent, we are better than you. Yeah. And I've gone to work, really working class towns, and seen dirt poor white people, and they don't feel any affinity with me most of the time. Do you know what I mean? They feel like we're still better than you. It's like everyone needs to kick someone. You know what I mean? So I think that's where it all comes from. And also they needed to keep the fear. With blackface, it was like Birth of a Nation, that film, was about maintaining fear of black people. If you get rid of slavery, this is what's going to happen. These black animals are going to rape our women. They're going to do, rob us. They're going to steal and all of that. So they had to portray us like that to keep justifying it. And that's why blackface, I was saying, is so dangerous.
That's why it answers the question, right? Because it's so difficult to confront the obvious fact that the cognitive dissonance, the fact that you treat things less than dogs, less than horses, treating dogs and horses better than you treat black people, the fact of that comes back to haunt. And I think a lot of white people are having this thought process, which is, if there's any justice, and if black people treat us the way we've treated them, then we're surely all going to be lynched in our sleep, right? And we're not like that. We're not like that,
exactly. I think there is, I can't remember who said it, well, it might have been Paul Mooney, it's like, white people are not scared of black people, they're scared of karma.
Right. Facts.
Exactly. I mean, it's just not our nature, really.
No, it's not human nature. Actually, it's not even in their nature. It's interesting to remark and discover how much heavy lifting, how much engineering required to turn people into slave masters, into overseers. How many soldiers? I think about Birmingham's connection to the slave trade, and that's what it was all about. The guns and the chains and stuff were made here, and ships to create the system. It wasn't a natural thing for white people to do.
And you might think it's a controversial comment, but you talk about overseers and stuff. That's what we have now in people like Sajid Javid.
That's the guy.
Sarge, I'll just call him that. And we have in the Quasis, and we have in the people that we talk about who we went to school with, who I now go, oh, all right, love. Do you know what I mean? That's what they have. That's the contract they make. And I'd written a piece, and I'd said one of the tools, one of the greatest tools that white supremacy has is financial abuse. They will literally starve you out. But then the other day I thought, hang on, because Ghislaine quoted me on that, the woman who does race reflection. I went, hold on a second, we need to talk about the other side of it, which is the reward. The reward, if you keep quiet, if you are that face, if you are that token person, you will be on TV all the time. You will get far in politics if you don't rock the boat too much, if you are grateful. And that's how change is stopped. And I'd written as well, they're going to use us to stop us.
Of course.
And they do it with every group. They do it with every minority group. got gay people who do it, trans people who do it, which surprised me.
Yeah.
Because I thought to myself, how can you be a trans person and go against because your whole thing is we are the sex that we feel that we are, and we know what sex we are. There's trans people who argue that. And I was like, wow, really? They get to every single community, like, you know, to maintain the status quo.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
That's it. I'm currently researching and rereading stuff around the 1919 race riots. I'm doing an online festival, Black Peril 2020, about that. But recovering information about quite how dangerous Garvey was, quite how the FBI in its infancy was really set up to get Garvey out of the picture, and how they recommended Joshua Coburn as his captain, and the FBI put stooges in there and overinflated the price of the Black Star Liner. We shouldn't be surprised that there are strike breakers, if you like, people that are there to make revolution seem foolhardy, or people that are there to sort of...
Oh, not surprised, no. Disappointed, but not surprised.
Not surprised.
But Marcus Garvey was doing something just amazing. He was connecting the struggles worldwide, which is, And
we still can't do that. We're like, yeah, Jimmy, I can't. Me, I'm Asian. I'm American. I'm British. We got our own thing over here. I'm African. You know, it's.
You see, I don't have that experience really. I don't. I have. I don't know. I guess going to the Caribbean in the last few years, when it's the hurricanes are really getting bad. And, you know, the tropical storms are getting bad. So for me, the way I see it is like when Dominica was literally smashed, Caribbean was crying. It was like really touching. They were all in tears for us. And Bajans were there, we got straight away onto a boat. Bajans are funny though, because it's like, okay, we'll come to you, don't come to us. Bajans don't really, they don't play nice really normally, but they got, because they like to keep everyone out of their island.
I think you're probably right there. I'm probably referring to actually American exceptionalism. So what Samuel L. Jackson said recently about actors. So a lot of my jazz compatriots as well. It's something that we discuss robustly. Right? American jazz is it's American. Jazz is just America's greatest export. And guys, you know, most of you came from Jamaica first, right? You came from Haiti first. You didn't come straight from Africa. We share this thing, but it's hard because
they're like their white counterparts, though. White Americans, it's their whole culture. All of them do. So it's like, I'm like, now you're behaving like your white counterparts who think your experience is the whole world. Half of them, you know, I can't remember what the percentage of them doesn't even have passports. They holiday in America. They're drummed in all the time. America's the greatest. America's the greatest. So of course, African Americans are going to think they're the greatest. And also, they have had a lot of movement. They have done a lot of work over there. But it's very different. To like, obviously they are living alongside the people that enslaved them, you know, whereas America's different. Someone explained it to me the other day actually, and was telling me how America is something that has, unlike the Caribbean, designed to stay a white country. So when they get too many, they will get rid of them, they incarcerate them. There are lots of policies, like the war on drugs, there's policies, it's like war on their own citizens, you know, and that's why African Americans are different. And I do respect them and what they have done and their struggles and stuff, which a lot of us, like anti-apartheid movement was modelled after Jim Crow and stuff like that. And so I do respect them, but guys, calm down.
So I want to go back to 2017 and this joyous moment where you and I opened up Brighton at the World Transformed Labour Party conference. People who I'd admired from afar, you know, Rom Committee, Seaslin, great rappers, Gizmo, talking about Clive Lewis, Ash Sarkar, Aaron Bastani, Michael Walker, people, and of course, Diane Abbott, so many incredible politicians and people of the left were in the same room at the same time, and it felt like something revolutionary was about to happen. And the Labour Party of 2017 that we witnessed up close to where we are now, I'm not struggling to understand it. I just want to be able to articulate this process with other people that were there up close to be able to see it. And I think, again, to go back to what you said, people are afraid of what they're going to lose. People are scared that their position, their privileges will be revoked. if they say the wrong thing, if they rock the boat too many times.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what happened, or that's what explains it, or other things?
No,
You
I
blogged on
think it. I think it was a lot of anti-blackness.
Mm.
I mean, Jeremy Corbyn gave people hope. It wasn't just black people. I did the comedy tour. I don't know if you ever did any of those dates. The JC for PM tour that we were all doing with Brian Eno. Ken Loach was on it. Lots of different names, Francesca Martinez.
Yep.
So we were doing comedy nights and stuff like that. And I think it's the establishment war on Jeremy. And it was vicious. And it was more vicious than we realised, because I believed that we would get past it. I thought around 2017, I thought people are so done with the Tories, black people, white people, working class people. There's someone who's going to redress the balance. And we nearly did it. Do you know what I mean? And then to find out the Labour leaks, we kind of had I don't know about you, but I suspected.
I knew.
Yeah. I didn't know to that extent how brazen they were about it as well. And I think a lot of it was, you guys know your place. And they did what they did in South Africa with the Boers and the black people, was they put a racial line between us, really. Because I think a lot of the criticism for Jeremy was his proximity to black people, his proximity to Muslim people, and they didn't like it. So they went and they stirred up poor white people who, like I said, want to feel bigger than somebody, and were like, oh, he's making those people think like they're equal to you, you know, and they're not. And if you do that, then you're going to be overrun with Muslim. And there was a lot of that going on at all different levels. You're going to be overrun with the black people. Oh, you know what I mean? It was like Labour themselves doing it. And go, oh, it's just not sensible. It's not sensible. And I'm like, if you listen to what he says, and I'm not just saying it, I love the Parliament channel. I watch it all the time. Well, not anymore, because the Keir Starmer's voice, but we'll get back to that. And so I watch the debates. I'm always interested in it and what's going on. And there was a lot of underhand. I just never seen anything like it. Since when? Do you have the leader of the Labour Party get up and say, well, maybe there should be an inquiry into the Iraq war? And you have somebody in your own party who's going, shut up. Ian Austin's there going, I don't know why. I remember saying,
and people would jeer over him, or no one from his own party would clap or cheer if he gets up to speak. And you're like, what's going on there? Because if my eyes were closed, I would assume that Jeremy Corbyn was the darkest skinned, thickest dreadlocked. Like, this geezer must have sparked up a spliff in front of the Speaker of the House of Commons for the way they're carrying on. And you're like, it's amazing that those associations are enough. You can just say, Venezuela. Oh, do you know he shared a motorbike with Diane Abbott back in the day?
And that was really nasty.
The nudge was enough to make people go, nah, he's got nothing to offer me because he's hung out with too many Muslims and black people.
Yeah, and the campaign against Diane is just constantly nasty. And you've had people, but it's interesting, the two relationships in Parliament that are ridiculed the most are Amber Rudd and Kwasi Kwarteng, and Diane Abbott and Jeremy Corbyn. Says it all. It's like, literally, even from their own side, there's always a big laugh about Amber Rudd sleeping with a black man. It's that whole infantile, backward kind of, oh God, you know, you don't do that openly. You don't sleep with them openly. You know what I mean? They've got like loads of people doing it in secret, but God, you don't parade around with them. You know, that kind of thing. And you saw it with Meghan Markle. You know, you saw, I mean, how are you writing an article in the Daily Mail? I'm saying how, we know why, but saying, oh, a few years ago, she'd have been the concubine. She'd have been the mistress. It's like that literal, it's just a whole know your place thing behind it. And Jeremy was trying to make people believe they were above their station. I think that is what motivated it. And I didn't realize how strong it was. Like when it came in, the exit polls, I switched it off after a while, went to bed. I cried so much.
I thought, because we were in our little Twitter bubbles and stuff and liking each other's posts,
that was another,
you kind of thought, youth quick. If we lose, we're possibly going to lose, because I was door knocking. I could see the strength of opinion against Corbyn and the left in general. When Momentum activists, 70-year-olds were getting beaten up at the doorstep, I was like, going on. But I didn't expect an 80-seat defeat.
No, I didn't see that coming.
It felt personal, because they were like saying, it felt to me low key with your rapping about Palestine, and Soweto with your solidarity, and Akala and Stormzy and all of you just go to hell. That's what it felt like, you know.
Yes, exactly what it was. And I didn't feel it as well because I didn't go door knocking this time because I've got a little one. Whereas before, I would have her, but she was more manageable. So I remember going door knocking for Catherine West, and I joined some door knocking places. And maybe in 2017, I joined door knocking places where it was strongly Labour anyway. Do you know what I mean? So we weren't really getting that. And so I didn't really feel the 2 years damage. So I kind of felt with Mimi growing up a little bit, couldn't sort of tire out her little legs and walk around. So I was doing my sort of activism on Twitter, and I was doing articles, and I was doing it in interviews, and also at my own gigs, like talking to people, going, who are you voting for? And that's, so maybe if I had done it, I would have had a more warning, and it wouldn't have crushed me the way that it did. It crushed me for a lot of reasons, personal reasons as well.
I got the impression at the last door knocking experiences that in certain constituencies, I won't name names, but they just didn't want me there. I spent an hour walking around trying to just find out where the meeting point was. By that point, they'd done most of the leafleting already. And it was clear to me by things that were expressed by the councillors and stuff that it was about a cabal closing ranks and trying to keep people like me out. I travelled in taxis from Handsworth to Dudley North to Northfield to Rubery, all different constituencies around the West Midlands. And I noticed a shift. In 2017, they were just sort of confused that anyone would care. And in 2019, they were pretty much determined to make sure that there was nothing like 2017 ever again.
Exactly.
Labour Party.
Yeah. And I do say that the whole thing, you see, it's not even finished. It wasn't just get rid of Corbyn. It was make sure there is never, ever another one again. That's what it's about now. That's why they're still going on about him. Do you know what I mean? And still trying to associate him with all this kind of nonsense. I really went in on a Telegraph writer for her nonsense about Black Lives Matter was anti-Semitic and it's rooted in hatred of Jews and stuff like that. And I was like, excuse me, lady, like, I don't protest anymore because of the kid and stuff. I've done my protesting, and the younger ones are out and they're doing well and they're doing it. Wish they didn't have to do it. But I just thought, I'm sorry, but these kids are not, Palestine isn't the main thing on their mind when they're going out there. And also, how the hell are you doing something like this that's so divisive when I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I just looked and saw these people. They're literally alternating between monkey chants and Nazi salutes. Like, they're trying to kill all of us. Black Lives Matter were fighting them physically. They put their bodies on the line with those people doing Nazi salutes. Don't you dare bring that to us and say, we're doing, it's some very, very divisive people. That are
the lack of self-awareness is literally staggering. From David Baddiel tweeting out performative solidarity, but saying nothing about him dressing up with a pineapple and blackface himself.
He won't even address it.
Won't even just acknowledge it and be like, look, I'm doing some work on it, or nothing. Silence. And then, as you said, all this, a right-wing group of Zionists, in some instances, a right-wing group of just nutcases and bullies who are going ape on people like Maxine Peake, or have basically been bullying me low grade for the best part of 2 years. And you realize, say nothing about swastikas openly on British streets a couple of Saturdays ago. Nothing about virulent anti-Semitism in Charlottesville and the rise of the far right. And it's concerning.
It is, because I looked at that and I thought, bloody hell, we told you so. I can't help but thinking, we told you so when I saw those guys out. And they were just like wild animals. And I thought, you see, this is what you voted in. And I'm just pissed off about it. Really disappointed.
And you know what? Of course, I do blame the far right activists. I blame the racists. But most of my ire and bile is reserved for people in our soft left movement. This is just my personal take, take it or leave it, who enabled a culture of just throwing a few socialists out to the wolves to try and placate them. They didn't call out bad faith uses of anti-Semitism, bad faith uses of racism early on. And they allowed this culture where people who have no commitment to anti-racism can lecture people like Diane Abbott, can lecture people like you or me about anti-racism, can expel Mark Wadsworth. Mark freaking Wadsworth. Put some respect on the man's name. I'm talking about you know, Stephen Lawrence bringing that to prominence, his work with black journalism.
They created a vacuum.
You know,
In attacking us, they created a vacuum for those people.
Yeah.
And they created a space, and those people just went straight into it and filled it. And it's like, told you so. Knew that was going to happen. That's what we were trying to stop.
Yeah.
And I do think there's just so much bad faith, and I think it was very unfair on the Jewish community, a lot of whom are very progressive, and will debate these things and whatever. And I think there does need to be a conversation, but a genuine conversation, definitely between Black people and the Jewish community at this moment, because we are both under sustained attack. And absolutely. I think we have to acknowledge, because we've both got a good friend, a Jewish woman, and me and her had a real sit down, and we had a chat about Israel. And I was trying to say to her, I understand actually what your connection. If you've been persecuted and moved and treated so badly, and then, you know, millions of you are killed and treated in such a horrific way, blamed for absolutely everything. Who the hell couldn't understand but us? So, but I do understand, like, you feel that country in the world, whether or not you're too into politics, you're grown up and you are told by your grandparents, we have a safe space now. We have somewhere we can go. We have somewhere that now belongs to us. Unfortunately, there are already people there. And that's the other issue, but I understand why. Really
aware of one of the first racist acts that happens with any society is to homogenize everyone and say all Black people are like that, all yellow people are like that, all Jews are like that. And one of my things from visiting Palestine and lucky enough to go to Israel and Palestine a couple of times is that there's so much nuance that is deliberately ignored. The thousands of Israelis who go on hunger strikes to show solidarity with Palestinians. The Palestinian Christian story, how they've just been basically ethnically cleansed so that you can present an image of, you know, Palestine as just Jews versus Muslims. All the Christian Zionists, those religious nutcases in America that want the Jews to return to Israel so that they can...
They're anti-Semitic as hell. They're anti-Semitic as hell. I keep trying to tell people, like, all Zionists are not Jewish people. The Christian Zionists are actually dangerous because you shouldn't accept that kind of solidarity, because they want all the Jews to return to Israel so that Jesus will come back.
Kill him.
And then everyone stops at that part of the story. And then the last bit of the story is they convert. And if they don't, we kill them all. And I'm like, excuse me.
That's what Jesus wanted.
Yeah. I'm like, they're trying to kill them. They don't want them there. They're not supporting Israel in any nice good way. They're like, I'm going to pay attention, and people don't listen to that part. And there's some people who would accept that solidarity and go, oh, they're giving money to Israel. And no, they're not doing it out of kindness. They're doing it because they want rid of them. Do you know what I mean? And it's just so complex. And I don't know, you probably know. Well, you do, because you just said so. I used to go with an Israeli guy, so I used to go over to Israel. And they have much more open conversations than we do. You can say all sorts of stuff over there. You can talk about it, be much more honest about it and stuff like that, in a way that we just don't do over here. And I'm like, in the actual place you're talking about, they have wider spread conversations and more opinions than we do here.
I think that's the proof. If you want to educate somebody about racism, if you want to change it, then you allow them to talk their foolishness, and then you stop them and you like give them more information. You don't lock down conversation. You don't shut down avenues. You open up new ones. You know, and when you discover somebody is not interested in learning, then you can shut the door. But if your first response is expel this person, don't give them a chance to explain themselves, just get rid of them.
Then there has to be room for mistakes as well. Someone had pointed out on Twitter the other day that sometimes young people, they say, why are Black people, well, we know it happens across the board, but are not afforded the same luxury as to make a mistake or to say the wrong thing, and it's jumped on straight away. Whereas young white people can go, oh, not fair, Black people taking jobs. And it's like, oh, sweetheart, we've got to mollycoddle you, and we've got to tell you, we've got to look after you and accept how they're people. You know what I mean? And then if Black people go, well, we think that anti-Semitism is taken more seriously than anti-Blackness, it's like, bleh! You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, these are young people who are trying to learn. It's kind of almost like freezing out the voices they don't want, really. And they freeze them out early. They do it across the Black student movement. They just, encourage you to be that way, be somebody who's silent on the things that concern you the most.
I think that's it. How can they gag you without even needing to tie a piece of material around your mouth? How can they make certain subjects so haram, so taboo that you're not allowed to even bring them up?
Yeah, but, exactly.
Yeah, if I wanted to segue, if it's possible, to just the treatment that you've seen of black women specifically in the left. I remember an article that you wrote that wasn't particularly well received. I think a lot of people in the soft left don't want to admit that they might have problems with anti-blackness or misogyny towards black women in general. But that on the one hand, and more generally, how violence towards black women is invisibilized, and what you think it says about our society, our culture.
The left finding it hard to accept there might be anti-blackness amongst them. I think that it's been illustrated. The main example people give is Martin Luther King's letter from an Alabama jail. It's the moderate that's going to stop us rather than the hardcore racists, because you know where you are with them. The moderates are the ones who go, oh, not now. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of that in the Labour Party. It's like, stop the black stuff now. It's like, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's all get what we want first together, and then we'll we'll come on to your issues later. They can't see that it's connected. And I think there is a lot of, I can't remember who it was, sorry. Was it Fanon? Somebody spoke about this, and you'll see it really illustrated in the trade union movement. And that attitude still stays today. And what it is when they started to complain and said, okay, you're bringing all this stuff in from India, all this material, we're the ones who are sitting there, we're the ones who are sewing it, we're the ones who are doing all that, we want a bigger share of the pie. They wouldn't give them their pie. They would go over to India and take even more from them. So there's not that connection of all the struggles being one. It's very much a me attitude. And I think you find that. And I tend to find, mostly if I get into a thing with people on the left, first thing they say to me is just, oh, you're stupid. You're too dumb to understand. You just don't get it. I'm like, excuse me? Like, I do understand how politics works and stuff. I'm not stupid. I follow it really closely. And it's just that, making a fuss about things we don't need to make a fuss about at the moment. And I think there's a lot of that. And when you point out that's anti-blackness, it becomes, you're divisive.
Yeah.
Angry. You're
coming. But you know that class is the most important thing here,
not
race.
Yes.
And class is at the root of it all. Stop talking about blacks.
Yeah. Yes. And then it would be like, oh, shut up. Like a lot I used to get around 2017 was, you went to boarding school anyway, so you don't get it. What do you know? Why are you talking? Do you know what I mean? I'm like, because I can. But I get that a lot on Twitter. People like out me for going to public school, which I I wrote a routine about it. That's what I do about everything.
I'm going to have to retweet or show the stuff people have said about me as well. I would have thought going to school with Boris and Oxford with being your mates and all of that. Like, you guys are really butthurt about something about me, about the way that maybe I don't look broken by racism, or I don't speak street in the way that you want me to at the times you want me to. I can, but it's
I mean,
confusing to
it's
them.
because it's like, how dare you complain? It's like, you should be, you've got everything. You were allowed to have everything. You'll see, like, Paul Robeson died broke. It was like, why did you not? Because you were great. You were an actor. You were doing well. You're the one who decided to spoil this for yourself. I think there is a deep ingrained hate. George the poet gets it. Like, oh my God, well, you went to Cambridge. It's like, oh, listen to him. Do you know he went to Cambridge? So the police who stop and search him don't know he went to Cambridge.
Thank you.
So there's all that kind of gets thrown in your face quite a lot. And I think there is also a threat, like Priya Gopal at the moment. Dr. Gopal, that is sustained, and it's bad. And I think
first off, the work is amazing. I can't wait to read it thoroughly. Been watching and listening to her tweeting and remarking on things really intelligently for years. But we have to ask, what is it that's so offensive about these people? Why don't they like you or me or her code?
I mean, she's in the heart of the establishment. She's in Cambridge. Not only that, she's teaching there, and she has these views, and that is a bigger threat than anything. Do you know what I mean? It's like Oxford, when the Cecil Road thing, and that started years ago. I think that started in 2012. And it was actually a South African student on a Cecil Rhodes scholarship. And they're going, you should be grateful. If it hadn't been for Cecil Rhodes, you wouldn't have that scholarship. He was going, no, I wouldn't have a scholarship. I have a hell of a lot more. Because of what
another country.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of, it's that. It's like, you know, and I think the higher up you go as a black person, when you speak like that, when you are like Diane Abbott, it's like, you know, I've had school friends go, oh, Ava, you're hardly ghetto, are you? And I'm like, well, that's your problem, because you just see the black experience as being ghetto. You don't think that, you know, it's multi-layered. There's all kinds of experiences that all of us have.
And I think about that thing that Rania Edo Lodge draws attention to, that Diane Abbott said. And we should remember the reasons when they were fine until a certain point. Then Diane Abbott said, white people love to divide and rule. That was like the call to arms. That was the, you know, the trigger.
Yeah.
There are things that people draw attention to. And I think we should be remember why Maxine Peake is in the crosshairs this week.
Yeah.
It's not just because of a misquote or a misunderstanding perhaps about knee techniques in Israel. It's because she's saying that racism is implicated in capitalism. That's the truth. We know it. It's so deep. Everyone really does understand that. And I think if you come out and say it, then they need a reason to discredit you. They need a reason to discredit Black Lives Matter solidarity with Palestine, because we're starting to draw threads where we're not supposed to.
And that's when Martin Luther King got killed. When he started the poor people marches and started bringing them together. And it's like, nah, mate, you started messing with our money. You've got to go.
That's right.
And that's
we liked you talking about the little white girls and black boys holding. That was cool. Go tell it on the mountain. Go ahead, Martin.
Exactly.
Leave the money alone, or we'll shoot.
Yes.
Yeah. I also wanted to, if we can, just discuss in some more detail, as much as you want to, obviously, but some of your experiences of violence against black women, either in your family or the things that you've seen in your political walks. And there is, I think, something very specific about the nature of abuse as it's meted out on black women's bodies. It's something I've only really started to appreciate more recently with the revelations about what happened with Oxfam, what's happened recently with these two black women whose bodies the police were taking selfies with. Everything harrowing that I've been reading about the case of you've been dealing with your daughter and that history, it says that it's probably time to look at this history of abuse with a specific lens and to address it. Because the reason it's so invisible, I think, says something as well about our society, that we can view one person as a victim and completely just ignore an entire race of women.
Yeah. I think, gosh, where do I even start? It's been said for quite a while, it's just not being listened to. If you look at Sarah Bartman, for example, that was like a horrific case. And that's why I said with the David Walliams putting on that suit, that was so highly offensive. That's something that gets black women killed, just the shape of their body. And to sort of laugh at big backsides and all that kind of stuff. And then it's also crossed with the, what's his name? I can't remember. Bo Selector guy, Lee Francis.
Yes.
His imitation of Trisha and his imitation of Mel B were very masculine. That is something black women have thrown at them all the time. And I remember sort of speaking in, John McDonnell had asked before the 2017 election for me and a few other people to come in and speak about what role feminism should play. And I highlighted black feminism, and the fact is, you've got to consider, like, white women were fighting to go out to work. We were always working. We never had any choice. You're fighting to go out to work. We're raising and actually breastfeeding your kids. You know what I mean? We've got our own kids on our backs and we're picking cotton. We're out in the sugarcane fields. Do you know what I mean? So you don't, all these things that you think is a luxury to go out and do are things that we've had forced upon us. So you got to look at that kind of thing. You got to be intersectional. You had Sojourner Truth that was saying, ain't I a woman? Because they were just treating us like we were nothing. You know what I mean? Like, almost, again, it ties into the 3/5 human thing. Like, how the hell's your husband? You've got all these little light kids running around the plantation and you're just sitting there, for God's sake. And it's just like, you know, I think they depicted that well in 12 Years a Slave, where they said that, oh, sorry, it's my wire, where they showed that she tried to complain to the wife, and the way the wife turned on the black woman. You see it in Louisiana, and I don't know what other states they had it, where black women were free and white men just couldn't leave us alone. And so you have to cover your hair. And then it's like, you're not showing your hair. It must be their hair and all their fancy hairstyles. And so it became, you have to cover it. So then it became fancy hair wrap. You know what I mean? Like, we've always had to just adapt and change. And I think that misogynoir and that idea that black women are masculine as well cuts a lot of sympathy for us.
Well, it's like you said, you have to justify how prolifically you've been raping them for hundreds of years. You have to find a reason in your mind why that was okay. F. What Hurt was attention to it in British as well, and a few other people, that there was a tunnel that linked the female chambers in slave forts directly to the bedrooms of these masters, of sometimes clergymen, the churches. It led directly from. It was like rape and the abuse of black women was built into the architecture of slavery, literally.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. Kind of getting your head around that then means that you have to consider the complicity of white women. You have to consider how the crimes of these men has just been written off as like, well, you know, granddad did what he did. It was Antigua. It was a long time ago. Read a book like Mansfield Park, as I have Jane Austen's Mansfield Park, with a modern perspective on it. Like, oh my gosh, this guy's a slave master and he's brought back 2 black children into a white household. And it completely changes your reading of a school text, put it that way. And I
think it's also at the same time as they were denigrating black women and sort of, you know, undermining their femininity, they were building up white women's femininity at the same time as so precious, and they're so innocent and they're so sweet and they're so pure. And that's why, and like I said, with Birth of a Nation, things like that, it was all about, oh, these black men are going to rape our women, and meanwhile they were the ones actually doing it. And so white women, these precious things that had to be protected and had to, you know, because they were so delicate, and the black men were going to get them. And you know, so a lot of that, it was them going that way and we're going that way. And white women are very often very complicit in it. And you see it. I mean, people are talking about it now, and you see it on the videos. I've had like white women go, I've had white women, oh, you're scaring me, stop it. I'm like, no. I had somebody who's like, said something on Twitter, and they followed me, I followed them. They were under a pseudonym. Yeah. There was one thing they said, and I said, well, another white woman follower had said something, and we shouldn't do this. They jumped in and did exactly what she said not to do. And she had a go at her, and she goes, oh, I don't know what's going on. I said, look, you just did what she asked you not to do. And it was like, yeah, I'm so sick of this, Ava. I'm always walking on eggshells with you. I can't, I'm just shaking over. I don't know you. I don't know your name. Right. I've never met you in my life. So you're basically saying that I'm terrifying you through the phone. And I had a female Labour MP at that thing that I told you about, where she was hosting the feminism debate that we were having with John McDonnell was hosting it. And I said all this stuff about black women. The woman came on straight after me and went, that's Ava Vidal. I don't know about you guys, but she scares me.
Again, you're going to have to explain why you had to call the black one in the pop group Scary Spice. Just stop. Yeah. Stop giving me all this nonsense and just give me a good explanation as to what you're scared of. Or are you transferring? Yeah. Are you projecting to us the violence? You know, it's crazy that when you consider the things that black people are accused of, black women are hypersexual, lustful animals. Why would you need to say that? Black men are so violent and they're just angry and they're lazy. They don't work hard enough. Why would you need to say that?
I can't remember
to death.
Who said it best. They said, oh, isn't it funny we became lazy when we stopped working for free? We weren't lazy before. It's as soon as that happened, all of a sudden we're lazy now, are we? I don't think so. You're calling us lazy, but when slavery ended, you got indentured servants. You didn't even think to do it yourself. You just thought, oh, we're going to go get another race of people then. Oh, since the blacks can't do it anymore. Just, you know, all these things are so heavily tied together. And it's also, especially, you know, you see, I know because I'm like pretty much 6 feet tall. So I get the man thing a lot. I see it with the Williams sisters. Yeah. I love to see them because they're like around my height as well. And Serena's properly stacked. Casta Semenya, they won't leave her alone. It's like if you don't, Michelle Obama, for God's sake, she's 5'11". It's if you don't fit into this delicate little petite, box. Do you know what I mean? And well, actually, if you're a white woman, you're 6 feet tall, you're just a supermodel. If you're black, you know, it's very hard. They're just not seen. It's just goes on, and it's exhausting. So I think that is why we are not seen. I think the dead bodies thing is another thing, where they took the photos of those 2 dead black women. But if you look at war zones and stuff, they'll show a pile of dead black bodies just piled up on the side of a road.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed when Corona started really taking hold, especially in Italy and Spain, I was like, where are the bodies? Where are the bodies?
Yeah.
No bodies were shown.
Wow.
There was no disrespect to their dead. There was like 1,100 dead a day. We never saw any. If that had been a black country or whatever, we would have seen them piled up. You'd have seen them thrown on the side.
You would have heard the women wailing. There's certain symbolism that always happens. The screaming black mothers, this is terrible, what are we going to do? The distended bellies, the flies around the black children. It's all, I think, a very powerful form of symbolism to re-enslave us as well and make us think that this is just natural. So there's no point fighting it. Yeah,
exactly what it is. And I do find, like, talk about loss of my own daughter, like a lot of people are. For me personally, my grief about that is pretty private.
Yeah.
I'm not doing, I've always made a point, like, I'm not, first 2 weeks, I can't tell you what I did. I drank a lot of Prosecco. There was a lot of crying, probably, and like just really wandering around, not really knowing. But what I realized with that was how hard people came down on me. Even so-called friends who were like non-black, don't want to know, Ava, don't want, like, you're just in a state. And I went, oh my God, we can't even grieve. And I was like, if I don't get this together and get it together fast, I will be sectioned or I will be arrested. That's how I realized within 2 weeks, get yourself together. Yeah. I'd start working on what you need to work on to get this story. And there was all sorts being thrown at me, all kinds of stuff. You know, and the story's so blatantly obvious if you look at it, what happened. There's no way this could have been a white girl and people would even consider half the shit they're saying about me. But good thing is, because I'm a black woman, people started lying about me when I was about 3. So I'm used to it. Yeah. Like, oh, did I do that? Okay, I did that.
Sure, you say I did.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are you now in the fight, and you know, what can we do to help and support? I know you're still fundraising.
I'm raising money. I'm raising money to have to take this certain person to court.
Good. Who
I'm not going to name. I could name, but I'm not going to give him a name anymore. Actually, one of my friends had said, don't give him a name. Who is that? You know what I mean? Just take that power away. I can understand that, sort of like they did in New Zealand with that killer. Just take the name away. You're not getting any more out of me in that respect. And the stories have got so ridiculous at this point, I am going to sue him for defamation of character. Right. And I have a good case. Just, it's very, very expensive. But I think this story needs to be told because it just connects so many dots.
Yeah,
it's
it does.
Not just a black story. It's about a little girl that was taken advantage of. Then you have to look at an uncomfortable part of the story, is that my mum helped. Yeah. Mum was part of it. She helped him. Yeah. And so we have to look at that. We have to look at how in the Caribbean, we are letting white men come in, and Africa, Asia, white men will come in as sex tourists, very bad in the Gambia, and just use black bodies like it's back in the day slave time. And we have to draw attention to that and call it out, really. And also come down hard on the families who are doing it. Like, if I remember I was in Dominica and I was with a friend, we were just sitting at a bar, and this Dominican woman, she's like a massive feminist over there. She went to me, don't like that. And I said, what? I turned around, there was a white guy about 40 or something with like a 10-year-old little girl just walking, trailing behind. I don't like it. And so we were kind of like, who are you? What are you doing? And Cattell doesn't like to be, answer any questions. Didn't care. We didn't try and make it uncomfortable. Where's this girl from? Where are you going with her? What is your connection to her? And he was like, oh, you to question me. It's like, we're questioning you. And we are going to question you. You have to call out the aunties who look the other way, who accept presents and stuff. I mean, it was depicted really well in Dancehall Queen. It's not an unusual story. And it's not just white people they do it with as well. It's like if you're a poor family and somebody comes from the richer part of your island, there's guys who will go down to the schools and give out mobile phones and stuff, and they'll be around the schools. You've got to call it all out.
Yeah.
And make sure
for connecting all these dots as well, calling it out, but trying to understand that Jeffrey Epstein, the whole culture of just sort of traveling to a tropical island and indulging in just evil and violence against young women is something that's hundreds of years old. And I think you've got to connect it to the statue of Edward Colston. You've got to connect it to the violence of George Floyd, slavery and racism and capitalism.
I think my story is important because of another person that is involved who is extremely rich and powerful and extremely connected to the Tory party. And that's another reason I cried when Labour lost so badly, because I thought, I'm not going to get justice. I thought I'd wake up to Diane being Home Secretary. How am I going to go to the people who are in charge, they're all connected, they're all friends. So, you know what I mean? They all know each other. So I'm going to go to the police. He's going to pick up a phone, call whoever in government. They'll make their phone calls and they'll say, tell her to go away. I'm like having like a massive battle at the moment, trying to get the police to listen, but trying to get it moved to a certain place. And there's all that going on as well. And I think my case, I would say, is Epstein meets Ed Buck meets Black Lives Matter. This is a prolific person who has been doing this for a number of years. And then it's like, you know, I had a certain publication on my side, which isn't one that naturally sides with black people anyway, but they were really good at helping and trying to get this person's name out, which they did, and then change editor. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, you got to be careful where you go. So I'm thinking, okay, I used to work at the Telegraph, might have a bit of a relationship there. Whoa, started doing my research. Don't go to the Telegraph. They've got the same lawyers as this man. Go and I like to call boarding school connections to try and find like who went to school with who drinks with who knows. So I know not to show them what I have, not to go to that person for help, because that person will pick up the phone the minute I come out the room. You know what I mean? I had to go to my old prep school headmistress, who's just lovely. Her family, she's not as much, she didn't like them, but they were very hardcore Tories, very, her parents, a certain Tory prime minister went to her parents' funeral and stuff like that. And so I had to call her and to say, look, this is this person, you know, this other guy's family. It's all like that. Obviously not going to say names at this point, but just, you know what I'm saying? It's all it's so complicated. It's so complicated. And my point is, if this is happening to me, then what's happening to black girls who live on an estate, who've got 4 kids, 3 kids, or 2 jobs, who's a single, who hasn't got time to do what I've got time to do, who can't pick up the phone and call your ex-headmistress and say, you need to find this out for me, who hasn't got the resources that I have, which isn't money-wise, isn't great at all, but, you know, I mean, even trying to put bits of a story together. What if I couldn't write? What if I couldn't express myself properly? What if I spoke in a kind of way that they just immediately, I mean, they're disrespectful enough to me as it has been anyway. But what if I couldn't even do this much? So I don't even see it. And I think that's a way I've coped as well, is removed myself from it a bit and put it in a compartment and gone, this isn't just about my kid. It's too late for my kid. So this actually is not for my kid. It's for all the other black kids. And there's a certain DJ as well that I think that I'm starting to really call out. I just want people to understand, you do not come into
You can say Tim Westwood if that's who it is. I mean, he needs to go. Simple as.
Tim Westwood, yeah, for sure. And just Thai music was such a champion of black women.
Rest in peace, Tyler. Love that.
I can't even. I just sometimes go when I realise he's not here. It's like it just. And for him, I said for him because he was good. I remember saying, you know, we weren't good mates or anything like that. We'd know each other. We'd see each other like you and I see each other. And it would be like a nice word or encouragement or I believe you. keep fighting, and he's speak out for black women so long.
Tireless.
And we look at a real champion there. And for him, we are going to take Tim Westwood down. We're going to take him down. All of us are going to go together and we will take him down.
Isacha Sheriff, all of the people who are part of this, Daniel Henry, some journalists working on it. Because you can say it's just one person, or that what happened to your daughter is one case in thousands, but they're emblematic. They're very important because they send a message. And shame is possibly the most powerful tool that we have now. Maybe the only tool that we have in our arsenal. We don't have hundreds of thousands of pounds to fight every legal case, but we can out people. Me too. That's what we were supposed to do.
And also, you know, the absent father came back after she was dead and profited from her death. You know what I mean? So you have to say that people going, oh, I've been called because the guy involved was white. Oh, I'm a bed wench. That'll serve you right. I'm like, but her black dad came back and helped. Do you know what I mean? So what? She wasn't a mixed race girl. She was a black girl. The black dad's family came and helped them. You know what I mean? We didn't.
As I read this story, there's no part of it that's comfortable. There's the part where you're saying you had no idea. Do you know what I mean? That's painful to read, and for you to realize this was happening so close to you, and then the actions of the black father, the actions of this white predator, all around this, and your mother, and all of this stuff. It's just like the levels of intricacy, the depths of depravity, stuff that no one escapes from, but nobody's tarnished by it. And
I believe, and it's just, I mean, all the stuff that my mother did, and I believe that her anger towards me is coming from the fact my dad was an abuser. Do you know what I mean? He was, I can say it because they threw it at me in court and tried to blame it on me, going, oh, she's paranoid because her dad was an abuser. I'm not paranoid at all. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm sorry. That's not why I'm saying this. I'm not mental and got these issues about my dad. And I think my mum hates my dad, and I am my dad's only child with her. And she has always had an issue with me. So that comes into her own trauma. And, you know, what I'm glad about in this case, the only thing I'm glad about is we got to see records, and I saw how deep my mum's sabotage of me has been for years now. For years, it's absolutely astounding when I found out some of the stuff that she does and says. And all I can think of, I mean, I didn't even know. I mean, that's the thing that kind of stuns me, because I go back and I think, well, what could I have done differently? Nothing. I took my daughter out of the country. I put her to school in Barbados. I put her to, my mum had never met this person in her life, because me and my mum had been estranged because of things she keeps doing to me in my life, trying to make me lose homes, trying to make me lose relationships, trying to make me lose money, work, that kind of thing, all the time. And it's just, I just thought, for God's sake, I can't. First time I cut her off, I tried to stay in touch with the rest of the family. Second time I cut her off, I cut them all off. And I was like, this woman is unfortunately poison. That brings in another cultural thing. Well, you will respect us. You will respect your parents. We will bust your head upside with a piece of sugar cane. And we, you know, those, I'll tell you one story. Like, I remember going to Nottingham Carnival, and like a fool, they were like, pick your sugar cane. Pick the piece of sugar cane you want. Does fool not go and pick up the biggest, heaviest ones you can get? Was that not even to beat me later? I was like, man. Next year, they're like, do you want sugar cane? I was like, no. Just get it away from me. I'm not falling for that shit again. And that kind of, and my thing is, actually, I'm not respecting you to my parents. I'm like, you've done a lot of wrong. I don't respect you. I don't like you. And I'm not going to do what you say. And it's like, you're commanding respect of me for what? You can't treat people like that and then demand that you're all seeing, all knowing, when I'm looking at the rotten, dirty things that you people do.
Man, again, I don't like to divulge personal stuff too publicly, but anyone that knows me will be like, oh my gosh, the parallels here are amazing. And
I mean, you don't have to. I was forced out.
There's trauma and there's estrangement. I can't think of actually a black family that there isn't some level of that in. And I just hope that this process is cathartic for you, that there's some healing in it, that you realize that, yes, you've had to battle a lot of stuff. You must have felt completely alone, but not in anything certainly I can do, but anyone else can do to help. I'm sure they'll be behind it. You know, I think it's an unveiling it's really dark and ugly to deal with, but it needs to be dealt with. It needs to be, that case needs to be aired. I think about other black women I've seen in centres and struggles for justice at the moment. Hashtag
Yeah,
free Sianda. I'll post that up afterwards as well. But
yeah,
it's an everyday occurrence, and it's only through really getting down to the nitty gritty of fighting for justice on
yeah.
behalf of your daughter and women like her that we can.
I've seen there's a campaign going on at the moment because they're trying to give kids of child sex abuse compensation, and there was a home for black kids called the Melting Pot, and in this scheme for reparations they've been left out, and a lot of times the black people who were abused in the children's home and stuff, they can't get their justice. They're not allowed to talk. They're not allowed to even, you know, it's like, oh, these white kids were abused. That's really, really awful. Let's give them some compensation. And they've literally said to black kids, you're not getting any. So I think we need to sort of highlight what's going on with the melting pot issue at the moment as well. And then there's also, like I think we sort of alluded to it at the beginning. Like, I was speaking to Amir Rahman, I don't know if you know, Australian comedian. He did that reverse racism bit.
Yeah.
So he's the one I had a 4-hour chat with yesterday. And he was like, Ava, are you in counselling? And I was like, no. He was like, oh my God, Ava, get into counselling. I was like, I don't think I need to. And I think it's because of humour. And you wouldn't think we could find anything funny. So like I said, I cut off my whole family. As my siblings, my elder sister, my elder brother, after my daughter's death, my mum was saying all kinds of nonsense. They went, no, this doesn't sound right. We need to talk to Ava. We all need to get back together and talk to Ava and support Ava through this. So I think having family members, having cousins in the States going, we didn't know this. This is not how this was sold to us. We were told that you'd abandoned this child. You dumped her in Barbados. You never looked back. I said, oh, you know, and I was lucky enough to be able to produce evidence that just wasn't true. There was just so many stories to unpick, but they realized very early. And I think one of the things my brother said that this person said to him was, oh, you don't know how Ava treated that girl. Ava said she used to threaten to put the girl in a children's home and went, I'm going to put you in a children's home so you get raped over and over. And my brother went, nah. That's when my brother went, no, not my sister would never say that. She would never even think it. And he said, first of all, women don't really talk like that. And even if they do, not her, not with our family history, she just wouldn't. And he said alarm bells were going off, you know, and he just wasn't going to have it. So at the moment, I don't think I need counselling, because even though my sister lives in New Zealand, we talk for about 2 hours on the phone every day.
Oh, great.
And our husband's like, what do you talk about? And we're like, sometimes nothing.
Yeah.
I say to my friend, and he was like, yeah, I'm with your sister's husband. And I said, sometimes we don't talk. So we just have each other on loudspeaker. We'll be washing up, maybe watching something, go, oh, by the way. And it's like she's still, like she's in the room. And then sometimes we laugh for an hour. Because it's just like, we know what growing up in that house was like. So we sometimes go, hang on a second. And then we'll say something, and it's just, we just start laughing. And I am now working on a show with Hackney Showroom about it, not with my daughter. And so there is, like, it's not going to be a heavy show. I hope it will be helpful to people. But it's also telling a story, and it's also finding the humour, because you just look at some of it and you're like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And my sister's married to this guy from Dalston. He's a white guy, Cockney guy. So when all this happened, the person was trying to win over members of my family, and he was like, oh, he was phoning, like my brother-in-law, he was messaging him going, you know, we're going to get through this together because we're family. My brother-in-law was like, no, we ain't. He was like, yeah, we're family. He was going, mate, I met you once. He goes, we're family, and we'll get through this, God damn it. And my brother-in-law, when he told me, he shouted him and went, I met you once, mate. We ain't fucking family. And I went, do.
Blooded.
And then we just started laughing our heads off. But it's little things like that where we just do, and we just, we laugh, and we laugh about her. You know what I mean? It's just, it took a bit of time after being accused of this horrible abuser, and it's escalating. Apparently, I put a nailing a piece of wood, and I used to beat her legs and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, she had scars all over her legs. She did not. This is just an absolute lie. And that's why I now have to go for defamation, because it's just absolute nonsense at this point. And the thing is, what really pisses me off is I had to cremate her. So I just realized, like, if I don't win this case, I have to get as much in as I can. And one of the things I said is cremate her and do not create a shrine, because this person is going to continue to harass me through that grave. I will go to that grave. There'll be letters there going, oh, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. So even though that's not culturally what we do, that's something I fought for and said, no, that's it. I wasn't even allowed to keep the ashes, not even a grain. Who are you to tell me I can't bury my? Who are you to misuse the law to tell me I can't bury my child because people have got secrets that they want to hide? Do you know what I mean?
That's the kernel that really hits me the most. Is that there's so much shame and guilt that's being transferred all over the place and flying around, and shame on you, and shame you didn't say something, shame here, and isolation and guilt. And the origin, the source of that guilt is still anonymous. And I respect your decision to keep it that way for the time being. But the obvious injustice of that, I get a lump in my throat. I'm like, how is the origin of the shame and the evil off scot-free, and everybody else is trying to negotiate and trying to work out how to survive afterwards?
Yeah. I mean, it's like another thing that alarmed my brother was, like, because my mum didn't realise me and my brother would talk, she just thought, oh, that's completely, like, she's out the family, blah, 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 blah. And she sent a WhatsApp message to my brother going, I encourage, we need to get my daughter's computer and phone. If Ava gets it, there's going to be real trouble. Why would you say, what grandmother says that? Who says that? What is it that I'm not supposed to see? And that was like a running theme. Don't let her have it. Don't let her see it. Don't let her get it. That's what it was about. It wasn't about body. It was never about body. It was about a computer and phone that I wasn't supposed to get.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the sunlight here is the best disinfectant, and that through this process that you will find justice. I really hope so and believe so.
I think so. I hope so.
Man. As I said, just don't forget, you're not alone. You know, I think the first time I read that blog post, I just found it really hard. I think I might have just sent a love heart or something trite to you, because there's no easy way to respond to somebody that you know at a certain level, revealing something that's so heavy that you can't help but reflect in ways in which you've seen that in your own family or not seen it. And it's hard. It's tough to process. And I think
that's what I want. I want everybody to start looking at your own families, especially us Caribbean people. Start looking at our families. Start looking at the structure. What are you ignoring? You know what I mean? There's just this whole culture about African Americans have it as well. I remember the Chris Rock routine really struck me hard, where it was like he was talking about everyone's got a child molester uncle, and your mum would be like, oh, well, it's your own fault. I told you not to go near him. Walk it off. And there is very much that kind of attitude, like, you know what's going on, you know what's being done, and you're actually blaming the kids for it. It's kind of like, oh, it's your, oh, don't talk about this. This is just, you know not to do these kind of things. And you're just like, what? So I think a lot of people, it has struck with a lot of, I've had a lot of Black women write to me and go, oh my God, I've had this happen to me. I've had that happen to me. I've had young girls write to me and say, I've been through certain things. I feel like I was exposed in certain ways by people who should have been taking care of me. I wasn't listened to. So all of that helps a lot as well. Just sort of helping people and getting them. And also doesn't make me popular, but I think that guaranteed respect your elders and all of that. No, that covers up a lot of stuff. Not accepting it.
Absolutely. Respect where respect is due, obviously.
Exactly.
And I know it's very cultural for us as well, but I can respect you at a level without wanting to perpetuate your foolishness or sanction evil where it's happened.
Exactly.
A lot of intergenerational trauma and a lot of blindness there. And unless we start talking about it, we can't just externalize what's happening now and be like, we haven't got things to work on as Black people if we really want to be cured from this horrible history, all of it.
Exactly. And then we have to think about the good things as well. I have another daughter, and had her quite late, and everyone's, oh, are you crazy?
The little feisty one is always on telly. She's going to have to be a
one.
TV celeb already. She's possibly as famous as you at this point.
She's so funny, and she has her sister's face. You know what I mean? So I see her sister all the time. Like, she'll see pictures of her sister as a kid and go, where was I? Where's that dress from? And I go, who's that? She goes, that's me. And I'm like, it's not you, actually. And so she's starting to gather now, because they're never going to know each other. So she has photos and she talks, but herself, she's just a joy most of the time. She's just so cheeky. She's just so...
Nah, I'm seeing that personality in the little bits and pieces, and that.
Yeah.
I can't think where she gets such a facetious, irreverent personality from. Beats me.
Yeah, it's one of those things where she does something and you go, yeah, that's all me. I can't even be mad at that.
I did that.
But yeah, she's great. Really great.
Good. Ava, you've been so generous, man, and thanks for giving up time to talk about this, but also divulge and open up in really powerful ways. You know, what it feels like is now a conversation has begun, irrespective of the current state of the Labour Party. And I feel that there's certain cats out of the bag, that certain genies out of the bottle that can't be forced back, and we need to just keep that pressure up on white supremacy, keep that pressure up on the abusers, black people, men and women.
I think one thing I'd say to black people who are disappointed with the Labour Party is just look at our ancestors. You know, it's like, oh, you know, people are like, oh, but what about a Tory government? So what? South Africans lived under the, whatever their part, I can't remember, slipped my name.
Apartheid.
Apartheid, but the party, what were they called?
Yeah, the PR, can't remember.
Yeah, whatever they were called. But they lived under that for so long. So we're living under the Tories. We've always been able to adapt and adjust. Our parents came here. Enoch Powell was saying all kinds of stuff. We've lived it before. We've survived it.
Was saying all sorts of stuff.
We can survive it. Again, we don't have to compromise and give the Labour Party our vote just because, oh, you won't get Tories. So what? If they're the same as the Tories, what's the difference?
Yeah, I hear that.
I don't care.
It's every single day the argument for like, oh, we can change the NAC council and we need to be at the table if we still. Those arguments are getting thinner and thinner and thinner for me.
Yes, the stay and fight people. I'm like, I'm good. It's like, how are you going to survive in the Tories again? It's like, well, you know, we've survived under all kinds of regimes. It's not great, but we can do it, and we will. And Labour will fix up, because we're not guaranteed we're not having it anymore.
That's right. And this idea that they've got no one else to vote for, I think it's time we just pull that down completely.
Yeah. Just
pull that rug from under their feet.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm going to have a lot of fun editing this. It's been wicked. It's been really, really good. Please send me any links you got to anything you're promoting, any other stuff, and I'll be sure to insert it into the interview and talk about it some more. But try
and sort of edit out my quarantine double chin. Thanks, because
I don't know if the filter. I'll see what I can do.
All right then. Thanks, Soweto.
God bless you. Anything you want, man, just holler. I'm here. So thank you so much. Man. All right.
All right then. See you later.
God bless. Ciao for now. Bye.